Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the United Nations Observance of International Women's Day 2018. Time is now. Rural and urban activists transforming women's lives.
This is not our first struggle, and it's not our first victory. Women have been fighting for social change, for democracy, for equality, for decades and decades.
We come together in fields and factories, in village markets and supermarkets, in living rooms and boardrooms. We share a common future, and we are here to find common ground so that we may help bring new dignity and respect to women and girls all over the world.
We are here this evening to celebrate the women on whose shoulders we stand.
It really is a revolution.
The women are not waiting for permission to do their work.
And
to be a voice for the women that don't have a voice.
Women have to be at the center.
And an arc of history.
The time is now.
No one can stop us. We will speak up for our rights, and we will bring change through our voice. Our words can change the whole world because we are all together.
The time for rhetoric is over. The time for pretending we don't know what is going on is over. And the time is now for equal rights for women, equal pay for women, and respect for women.
Please welcome journalist and co-anchor of ABC's Eyewitness News, your moderator for today's event, Sade Badarinwar.
Good morning. Thank you for the love. The time is now. No more silence, no more harassment. Let me hear you say it. The time is now. No more fending off sexual advances by an employer or a person in power. The time is now. No more being afraid to speak our truth. The time is now. And no more paid disparity. We're tired of doing the same job as a man, but getting paid less. We must have equal rights and equal respect for all women in every corner of the globe. Hello, everyone. I'm Sade Badarinwar from WABC TV. And what a pleasure it is to join you once again for International Women's Day. You know, I think watching that video that we saw, it's really an incredible reminder of how far we've come. There have been so many pivotal moments that have happened throughout the last century where we have seen huge strides for women and girls, but the fight is not over. We know that there is still a backlash against women who speak out in many countries, and there are minimal repercussions for accused harassers. We have to keep the revolution going. No one can stop us. And in the video, we saw Malala Yousafzai shot in the head because she wanted to learn. Nadia Murad, also in the video, captured at the age of 19 in Iraq by ISIS and used as a sex slave. She was brutally gang raped and tortured over and over again. After escaping and getting here to America, no one has stopped her from speaking out since. She's been right here at the UN talking about the plight of Yazidi women and girls. Nor have they stopped Monica Singh, an Indian acid attack survivor whose entire face was disfigured at the age of 19, all because of a boyfriend. He wanted to marry her, and she didn't want to marry him because she wanted to go to college. She's speaking out, and no one is stopping her voice. During the last year, we've watched as cities around the world, including this one, having hosted marches of solidarity. We have been moved by global solidarity movements such as Me Too and Time's Up. And we've heard a chorus of women's voices demanding an end to equality and injustice in the workplace, speaking up as one voice to say that the time is now for universal gender equality. You know, I really feel as though, that's right. You know, I really feel as though, at least I'm hoping, that we have reached a tipping point in history for gender equality. We're really living in an historic moment, and we must seize this momentum to create systematic change. We need to make sure that when we look back, we recognize that it was at this moment that we leveled the playing field for all women and girls, that we provided a platform and an ear for those who spoke out and stood up, and that we all came together to transform this incredible energy into action. It is now up to all of us to keep this momentum going and to make it be known that the time is now, right now. During this year's International Women's Day, we celebrate not only women and girls around the world, but also the activists who are tirelessly working to reach the women and girls that are too often left behind. We have an incredible lineup of speakers today who champion gender and transform the lives of women and girls in so many different ways. But before we begin, we wish to thank the United Nations Foundation, our partner in promoting the rights of all girls and women, and our sponsor for today's observance for International Women's Day. So, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the opening remarks today, please welcome the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I am delighted to be with you to celebrate the activism and transformative power of women and girls. We are at a pivotal moment for women's rights. For decades, women have been calling for the equality that is their right, and today they are shaking the pillars of patriarchy. They are telling their stories and provoking important and necessary conversations. Everywhere, women are saying, the time is now. Time for equality and opportunity, respect and equal representation. Time for an end to violence. Around the world, women and girls are calling out the abusive behavior and discriminatory attitudes that face everywhere and all the time. They are insisting on lasting change. That is what women and girls want, and that is what I want. And it is what every sensible man and boy should want. First, because gender equality is a fundamental human right, but also because there is no better path to a more peaceful and prosperous world than the empowerment of women and girls. Power is at the heart of the matter, as we still live in a male-dominated world with a male-dominated culture. And until power is fairly shared, the world will remain out of balance. Gender inequality, discrimination, and violence against women harm us all. And there is overwhelming evidence that investing in women is the most effective way to lift communities, companies, and countries. Women's participation makes peace agreements stronger, societies more resilient, and economies more vigorous. And that is why the empowerment of women and girls is at the heart of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Gender equality is one unfinished business of our time, and so the time is now to change it. We have seen significant advances since the first International Women's Day in 1976. More girls in school, more women doing paid work, and harmful practices like female genital mutilation and child marriage in decline. But we still need to break the structural barriers that women and girls face. Unpaid care work, unequal pay, harmful stereotypes, discrimination, and violence. When we look at the low numbers of women in senior roles in the private sector, academia, politics, and international organizations, including in the United Nations, we all have to say we can and must do more. And that is why I am determined to achieve gender parity throughout the United Nations. For the first time ever, we have now parity in the organization's Senior Management Committee, the top level of this organization. And we are very close to reach it in relation to the leaders of UN country teams around the world. I expect to reach this objective at least in April, hopefully still this month. I am determined to maintain this momentum, and I'm totally committed also to zero tolerance in sexual harassment. We are improving reporting and accountability, trying to establish confidence, and we have empowered people with experience or witness harassment to come forward and to seek justice. These are the kinds of actions we need in every sector. All around the world, we need to listen to the women and girls who are rightly proclaiming their rights. We must join together as partners, women and girls, men and boys, to make gender equality a reality for all. Our aspirations for a world of peace, prosperity, dignity, and opportunity for all depend on it. So, in this International Women's Day, let us demand gender equality and women's empowerment together. Let us declare loud and clear, the time is now. Thank you.
Powerful words, Secretary General. Thank you. Now we're going to hear from His Excellency Miroslav Lajcak. He is the President of the General Assembly. As President of the General Assembly, His Excellency is committed to advancing gender equality and harnessing the full potential of women as agents of change. He has been designated as the International Gender Champion on behalf of the International Gender Champion Networks. Please join me in issuing him a warm welcome.
Excellencies, Mr. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to participate in this event. And we are meeting to observe this year's International Women's Day, and we are doing so in an interesting time. A time in which inequalities are under serious threat. A time in which power no longer guarantees impunity. And a time in which silence is not as easily enforced. This makes today's discussion more crucial than ever. And in helping to open it, I would like to make three main points. The first is that we are doing more. We are enacting more laws to protect women and to strengthen their social and financial agency. We are designing more policies which propel women forward in the workplace. And we are marching more, and we are speaking out more. And as a result, we are seeing more equality. This is particularly true given where we are meeting today, because thanks to the Secretary General, the United Nations has now reached gender parity among the top management for the first time. And we are seeing moves in this direction in other industries and sectors. But we should not spend too much time celebrating, because as my second point, I want to say that what we are doing is still not enough. For every woman who speaks out, there are too many others forced into silence. For every woman who enjoys her human rights, there are too many others still fighting for their own. And for every woman who lives in safety, there are too many others living in fear. 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced physical or sexual abuse in their lifetime. More than 700 million women living today were married before their 18th birthday, and our world is still not led by as many women leaders as men. Only 22 countries have women as their heads of state or government, and women represent only 23% of all parliamentarians worldwide. We can even see this disparity here in the General Assembly hall. When I became President of the General Assembly, I was committed to ensuring a gender balance among the Assembly's many processes. And I have to tell you, this was not easy to do. When it came to appointing women, we had a small pool to draw from, because only 20% of the ambassadors sent to represent their countries at the United Nations are women. And so we have work to do, which is my third point today. We need to reinvigorate our focus on gender, and the United Nations must lead the way. We need even more cooperation and efforts to empower women and advance gender equality. And we need to mainstream gender throughout everything else we do, from peacekeeping to the promotion of human rights. We cannot achieve sustainable development goals or peace if half of our global population is denied both rights and opportunities. And this means that every effort towards every sustainable development goals must ensure women's participation and equality. There are too many women, particularly young women and women in rural areas, who have innovative ideas and solutions, but they have not been given the platform to turn them into action. So we have more work to do, and today is a great opportunity to start. Excellencies, we can no longer call for gender equality without following our calls with action. We can no longer speak out for women's rights without speaking out even louder when they are violated. And we can no longer agree that action is needed without taking it ourselves. And so I want to join other voices by saying the time is now. Thank you very much.
We need to hear more words like this, enacting more laws to protect women. These are the real things that we need to happen to really see real change. Well, thank you, Your Excellency. Now we'll be joined by Her Honorable Minister Julie Bishop. She has previously served as the Minister assisting the Prime Minister for Women's Issues. Minister Bishop was sworn in as Australia's first female foreign minister in 2013. Please give her a round of applause. Minister Julie Bishop.
Mr. President, Secretary General, Excellencies, and a special shout out to the women, for this is your day. On this day, we reflect on the achievements of women, their successes. We reflect on the journey that lies ahead and the challenges. And we should all take the time to think how we can, over the other 364 days of the year, support and empower women and achieve gender equality. No nation can reach its potential unless it fully engages with the skills and talents and ideas and energy of that 50% of its population that is female. And one of the most important ways that government can drive economic growth, strengthen communities and lift standards of living is to achieve gender parity, gender equality. And that's what governments around the world must strive for. And research shows that this can be quantified to a large extent. Research shows that gender inequality, gender bias, gender discrimination, gender-based violence does have a major impact on the global economy. In 2015, McKinsey's reported that of the global unpaid work, 75% of it was carried out by women, and if you put a value on it, it would be worth US $10 trillion. The World Bank last year found that gender-based violence costs the economy globally 4% of GDP in lost productivity. And the ILO has found that if we were to narrow the gap between male and female participation by just a quarter, global GDP could be boosted, and it's worth about $6 trillion. So as Australia's first female foreign minister, I have placed gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls at the heart of Australia's foreign policy. I am acutely aware of the need to empower women in our region, the Indo-Pacific. In relation to our foreign aid, our development assistance program, which focuses mainly on the Pacific, I have 3 key pillars for women. First, programs that enable more women to take part in the economy of their nation. Secondly, to engage more women in leadership positions. This is a region where female participation in politics is at 7% compared with the global 23%. And I've also initiated programs that tackle the scourge of domestic and gender-based violence. And I'm a great believer in the power of mentoring. I've established a program whereby we identify emerging young female leaders from Pacific Island nations and pair them with an Australian female leader. And it's a formal mentoring program because we want to see more women, more girls take leadership positions across the Pacific. I've also mandated that 80% of our aid investment in our development assistance program must take into account the impact on women. Let me give you one example. We had a road building project in Timor-Leste, and with the investment came opportunities to train local people in road building skills, in engineering, in administration, management and the like. And I found that all of the participants were male. And I asked, what about the women? Well, none applied. Well, go and find them. And they did, and today 30% of the participants in that program are women. As I'm at the United Nations, I want to tell you about a little-known event. Each year, during the UN General Assembly Leaders' Week in September here in New York, there's a dinner attended by the female foreign ministers, foreign secretaries of countries around the world. We discuss the global and regional challenges, and I can tell you it is one of the most constructive meetings I attend. And this Female Foreign Ministers Club, of which I am proud to be a member, now numbers 32. So 32 out of 193 nations have female foreign ministers, and there will be more. I want to commend the Secretary-General for his gender parity strategy and for the fact that he's prepared to have the United Nations held to account on the targets that they've set. And I particularly applaud his efforts in achieving gender parity in the senior executive team here at the United Nations. Institutional commitments, concrete targets, role models, mentoring from men and women are absolutely critical to ensure that we can achieve gender equality across all walks of life. And today, we must all commit anew to this most important and critical of tasks. Thank you.
Change is happening around the globe, ladies. Thank you, Honorable Minister Bishop. Now we're going to hear from Her Excellency Ms. Geraldine Byrne-Nason, Chair-Designate of the 62nd Commission on the Status of Women, and Ambassador Byrne-Nason will guide and facilitate discussion at the 62nd Commission on the Status of Women next week as it considers the challenges and opportunities in achieving gender equality and the empowerment of rural women and girls. Ms. Geraldine Byrne-Nason.
Secretary General, President, sisters, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning as the new chair of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. I want to wish you all a happy International Women's Day. In my own native Irish language, we say, Lá idir náisiúnta na man hana íomh go léir. I'm honoured and very proud to be the first Irish person to hold this important role. We have a unique forum, a unique global forum here at the UN, and that gives us a unique opportunity. If any of you know anything about Irish women, you'll know that I plan not to waste that opportunity. At CSW 62, we will dedicate our energies to improving the lives of some of the most vulnerable women amongst us, the most vulnerable girls amongst us, women and girls who live in rural areas. By any reckoning, they are often the furthest behind. Their access to basic services like health and education often shame us. Their treatment in some of our justice systems need fundamental transformation. Poverty and violence in rural areas is a blight on the lives of women and girls and stops them from realizing anything like their true potential. We know that. We can't stand by. We all made a commitment to reach those furthest behind. The time is now. At CSW, we plan to be bold. We're a demanding lot, the CSW, this army of over 4,000 delegates who will descend on this very chamber next Monday. We're on the move. We will acknowledge that we stand on the shoulders of great work of extraordinary men and women who brought us this far, but we will also be honest in recognizing our distance to target, in recognizing the daunting challenges ahead and the long way we have to go, in particular in realizing gender equality for rural women and girls. We won't accept the status quo at CSW 62. We have heard from others already this morning that we're at a tipping point. I sincerely hope so. As international policymakers and national legislators, we want and we should capitalize on this moment and realize transformational changes. Changes that will move women and girls from fields to boardrooms, help educate them as teachers and doctors to lead their rural communities, help bring them from their rural villages into their national parliaments, giving them their own voice. As chair of the CSW, I'm inspired by a great friend of the United Nations, a woman who was the first woman president of Ireland, Mary Robinson. She spoke poetically about the women of Ireland who elected her, Mná na hÉireann. She said that the women who rocked the cradle rocked the system. I hope that CSW 62 will seize this moment. From Hollywood to Haiti, from the rural hills of Kenya to those tiny villages in the west of Ireland, we're ready to say, the time is now, we have had enough, we will plan to rock the system. Thank you.
Yes, and we do need to rock the system. Thank you, Your Excellency. And now, well, first of all, I just wanted to thank all of the speakers. You had so many rich things to say, and certainly about how we're going to move this needle forward. So thank you once again. Now it is time for Monica Ramirez to give our keynote speech. She's the co-founder and president of Alianza Nacional de Campesinos. She is an advocate for the rights and unique needs of women farm workers in this country. Ramirez has dedicated more than 2 decades to the eradication of gender-based violence, specifically on behalf of farm worker and immigrant women. On behalf of 700,000 farm worker women across the country, is right. Her organization wrote a letter to Hollywood actors in support of the Me Too movement, prompting the genesis of the Time's Up movement. Please welcome, a warm, robust welcome for Monica Ramirez.
He took me far off into the fields. He told me that he was going to show me where I would work that day. Instead, he attacked me, and no one could hear me scream. These are the words of Guadalupe, one of the first women I had the privilege to serve as a legal defender. Her experience echoed the experience of women around the world who work in agriculture, who are similarly preyed upon by company owners, bosses, supervisors, and coworkers. More than 400 million women work in agriculture worldwide. They plant, pick, and pack the food that we eat. Their work is vital. It gives us life. And while their work is so vital to our lives, their lives are under constant threat. Farm worker women are invisible to most people, and it's this invisibility that makes them vulnerable to exploitation, discrimination, and the violence that is perpetrated against them. I offer my deepest gratitude to the UN Secretary General, President of the General Assembly, Minister of Foreign Affairs in Australia, Chairperson of the Commission on the Status of Women, and the Executive Director of UN Women, and her team, who made today's event possible to bring farm worker women and other rural women out of the shadows and into public consciousness, not to mention prioritizing the needs of rural women for the 62nd Commission on the Status of Women. According to UN Women, rural women lag behind every gender and development indicator for which data is available. Farm worker women are required to produce and perform at superhuman levels under dangerous conditions where they are often exposed to toxic chemicals. They lack the services and the protections that they require to live healthy and whole lives. Farm worker women are often viewed as powerless and disposable. Women workers across industries have historically been undervalued, denied the benefits for their work, and deprived of necessary protections. Worldwide, there are many examples of times in which women have not been guaranteed the same benefits or prioritized in the same way as men have been, from the creation of our institutions to the passage of our laws. This is true at the national government level and true here in the United Nations. It took 64 years after the Commission on the Status of Women was established in 1946 and 36 years after the first UN Conference on Women in Mexico City in 1975 for the UN to form an entity that specifically focused on achieving gender equality and women's empowerment. The time is now to ensure that this entity receives the proper resources that it needs and that are required to meet the needs of women and girls across the globe. It is unconscionable that in many countries, women still do not have equal rights, equal pay, equal opportunities for education, equal access to capital, and equal representation and political power at all levels. While it is true that there is no justification for these facts, the other truth is we are not waiting to be saved. We are saving ourselves, despite all odds. Women in rural communities and urban centers are rising up and taking decisive actions to transform our own lives. We are making critical strides, even though we don't have the necessary resources, support, or infrastructure that we need. Right now, we are witnessing a seismic shift in our society that is being led by women. The world is finally waking up to the power, potential, and vision of women. As we link arms across industries, across movements, and across borders to send an unequivocal message, the time is now to secure equal rights and opportunities for women and girls. And we are setting an example for a radically inclusive leadership that is born of mutual respect and a deep commitment not to leave anyone behind. Our leadership is fueled by love and carried out with courage. This leadership rests on a foundation that was laid by generations of women who came before us and to whom we owe a debt of gratitude. Our movement for gender equality has been elevated to the world stage thanks to our sisters in the entertainment industry who are sharing their powerful platforms to shine a light on our collective efforts to bend the arc toward justice and hold those accountable who discriminate against and harm women. Ours is a righteous cause that is bigger than any one of us and for the benefit of all of us. To achieve our shared goals, we must all commit to reaching and serving the last girl, the most vulnerable and least visible among us. We must work so that she might she will be brought from the margins to the center of our society. Governments must ensure that women and girls are afforded the same rights as men and boys. It is our duty to evaluate existing institutions to guarantee that they truly serve. When they don't, we must be committed to transforming them so that they work for everyone. Today, I call upon each of us to support and serve the women and girls who we know and the countless women and girls whose names we will never know, but who also deserve to live and work with dignity under safe conditions. Further, I urge governmental leaders, our male allies, and all of civil society to join us as we work to advance the rights of rural women and all people across the globe. The future well-being and prosperity of our world are depending on all of us.
And Monica, we are linking arms with the farm worker women. Thank you so much. Thank you for your passion and your commitment. And now I'd like to invite to the stage UN Women Executive Director Phumzile Malabo Nguka to give her remarks. And you guys know this woman. She has been a champion for women and girls for decades.
Secretary General. Thank you. Secretary General, President of the General Assembly, Ministers, Excellencies, Sisters, and brothers, thank you so much for today. I also want to acknowledge the presence of the wonderful guests we have, Reese Witherspoon, and the superhero of Black Panther, Danai Gurira. She is in the house. Thank you to both of you for being here. We welcome the 2018 Observance of International Women's Day. Every year, this celebration grows stronger and bigger, celebrated by women and an increasing number of men everywhere in the world. It is important that this occasion leads us to significant results for the changes that we seek every year. Today, we celebrate the power of activism that can bring change for all women. We celebrate solidarity of the sisterhood of humanity, not the brotherhood of man. Our program today underlines that this is a tipping point moment for the world. All of us can contribute to ensuring that the balance swings one way only and never goes back, that the pendulum swings one way only and never goes back. Our Secretary General is taking a tough stance on the ending of all forms of harassment and sexual assault in the United Nations and everywhere in the world where it occurs. Thank you, Secretary General, for leading from the front. We remember that for generations, women have been fighting for their rights and making their voices heard all over the world. And we need to continue until we have won our victories. We have some evidence of the resolve in this room today. Let us see who is in the house today. We have Latin America, the Nia Maos Uno in the house. Thank you for being here. We have the French women supporting the movement of activism in the house, the Balance Tonpol. We have the West African women celebrating the win in the ECOWAS courts. And we have the wonderful Bring Back Our Girls movement. We have the Middle East call to end Marry Your Rapist. We have the North American Time's Up. And we have in the house the Me Too. So what we are about today is bringing everybody in one room. Take Hollywood to the farmland and farmland to Hollywood, because this struggle is universal. Women and girls in rural areas, indigenous women, human rights defenders who have fought and even lost their lives protecting their land need to be supported, but their struggles need to be celebrated and made visible. Rural women must not be invisible. We celebrate the creation of Spotlight, an AU-supported fund to fight gender-based violence in Asia, Africa, Latin America. It is determined to engage the United Nations, governments, women, and civil society to rid all forms of violence against women. We celebrate the announcements of UN sister agencies that work on ending child marriage, that in the last decade, we are beginning to see the decline of this harmful cultural practice. We welcome and celebrate the activism of our Gambian Regional Goodwill Ambassador, and listen to this. She is a Nobel Prize nominee for her work on ending FGM and child marriage. Can you imagine child marriage, FGM, and a Nobel Peace Prize together in one sentence? This is tipping point. This is change. At CSW 62, we must generate global consensus to accelerate the much-needed end of all forms of discrimination against women, because an injury to one is an injury to all, and time is up. Thank you.
She fires you up, doesn't she? Don't you love all that energy? Thank you, Executive Director. Yes. And also, thank you, Secretary General. Thank you so much for attending today, lending your voice, and certainly for your commitment to championing the causes of women and girls. Thank you very much. Well, now, we're going to actually have a special treat. To perform Roar, please give a warm welcome to a 12-year-old Drew Olivia Tillman.
I used to bite my tongue and hold my breath, scared to rock the boat and make a mess. So I sit quietly, agree politely. I guess that I forgot I had the choice. I let you push me past the breaking point. I stood for nothing, so I fell for everything. You held me down, but I got up. Already brushing off the dust. You hear my voice, you hear that sound. Like thunder gonna shake the ground. You held me down, but I got up. Get ready, cause I've had enough. You see it all, you see it now. I've got the eye of the tiger, fighter, dancing through the fire, cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar louder, louder than a lion, cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar, roar, roar. Now I'm floating like a butterfly, stinging like a bee, I burn my stripes. I went from zero to my own hero. You held me down, but I got up. Already brushing off the dust. You hear my voice, you hear that sound. Like thunder gonna shake the ground. You held me down, but I got up. Get ready, cause I've had enough. You see it all, you see it now. I've got the eye of the tiger, fighter, dancing through the fire, cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar louder, louder than a lion, cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear
Thank you.
Okay, Drew, not so fast. Come back over here. You got everybody on their feet. You got everybody singing. Let me hear you roar. How are you?
I'm great.
Look at all these women you're inspiring. You know, let me ask you, what does today mean to you?
Everything.
Everything?
It means
Like what?
everything. I mean, I can't even describe it. Powerful.
Powerful.
Inspiring.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know. I don't know. I can't think of
You're
anything.
hopeful for your future, right?
Very.
Being paid the
Very.
same as a man?
Yes.
That's right. And being in a key position, right?
Yes.
Maybe the next prime minister, maybe the next president,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yes.
All the options are there. Thank you. We hear your inner roar.
Thank you so
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, now I'd just like to bring somebody up on the stage really quick. We've got Bibi Sharifa Khan, who is president of the United Nations Staff Council. Bibi, where are you? Come on up here. I just want to talk to you for a second. Come on over here. You know, we're seeing all these placards, the Me Too, Time's Up placards, and, you know, this movement is a real movement. And women are trying to seize the moment to make sure that there is systemic change. What does this movement mean to you?
Thank you, Shade.
Sure.
This is a real pleasure, I gotta tell you.
The pleasure is mine, trust me.
Sisters, what does the Me Too movement mean to me? When this started, like many of you, we never expected where it would go. But it came along like a tidal wave and washed us all along. For me personally, this is very personal. #MeToo. And I'll tell you what it really means to me in a very personal way. As a young girl in a developing country, as much as our parents and our communities try to protect us, it happens in different ways. And for a young person, that's a scar that you carry for the rest of your life. It wounds the spirit. It's not something that you can wash away. It's always there with you. And I looked with amazement, I read with amazement the women who came up in this virtual space, this virtual safe space, and shared their stories. It was amazing because not only did #MeToo give those women sitting everywhere a chance to share their stories, it was cathartic. It brought about healing. And for me, this is what we need. We need the healing for those who have been so personally affected.
Yes.
Yes.
Healing and pressing on.
Yes. So thank you very much, Shade. But I have one more thing to say.
Yes.
Within the organization, I've heard Monica speak very eloquently about the plight of farm women, women in the shadows. Women sitting here, working here at the UN, our Secretary General, as has been pointed out, is leading from the front. But he needs everyone who enters this building to stand with him and to support him and to endorse zero tolerance policy. That's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bibi. Thank you. All right, ladies, well, the fireside chat is going to continue. So today, on the occasion of IWD, we have an exciting panel with two of the world's biggest stars who have been long-standing gender champions and remain at the forefront of this effort. They've played heroines on the screen and are truly our heroines in real life. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back our executive director, who will be joined by Golden Globe winning actress, producer, and activist at the core of Time's Up movement, Reese Witherspoon, and Tony Award winning playwright for Eclipse, television star and star of Black Panther, Denai Guerrero.
All right. Thank you so much to our two wonderful guests. I'm starstruck, so work with me. This is an effort to pull the world together so that wherever she is, wherever I am, wherever she is, wherever you are, we are together, fighting for the same cause and moving forward together. So I want to start with you, Reese. You've done wonderful work in your time, not just with the start of Me Too. You were already an activist in your own right. What have you learned from the Time's Up experience? Something that you can share with men and women in this house and all over the world, because this is being streamed globally.
Thank you. First of all, what an honor to be here with all of you. This is very emotional for me. I'm truly honored to see all of you and hear your activism for all women across the world. I have a company in Los Angeles that I started 7 years ago to put women at the center of stories, because I noticed not as many women were getting to be the leads in movies. And then this year, we discovered through incredible reporting through the New York Times and several other journalistic establishments that there has been rampant sexual harassment and abuse within our industry, including myself. When I was 16 years old, I was assaulted by a director on a movie. And I think one of the things I understood was a condition of my employment and the opportunities that I had was silence. And with the revelation that so many women had been assaulted, discriminated against, and generally told to be quiet for fear of losing opportunity and their job, we decided we were all going to come together. So it started out in October, 40 women in a room just talking about this is a problem and how are we going to deal with it, because enough is enough and time is up. We are no longer going to be harassed. We are no longer going to be mistreated or discriminated against or paid less money. We are going to create more opportunities for each other. But as an extension of that, we decided we wanted to reach out to other communities, and we didn't know how to do that. And that is when we got the beautiful letter from Monica Ramirez that was on behalf of the farm workers, who said, we see you, we hear you, we know you're in Hollywood and your lives are different, but we are all the same, because we are women and we are workers. And women everywhere who are workers have to link arms and stand together. And that was a huge catalyst for us. So we wrote a letter in response back to Monica, and that's how the Time's Up movement started.
So, as you can see, we are completing the circle. In the next few days, starting from Monday, there will be more than 4,000 women in New York, my guests, for 10 days, 10 hardworking days. And our focus will be on the empowering of women and girls who live in rural areas. There will be a lot said about Me Too. The circle is becoming finished. At the end of that session, we will come with conclusions, actions, and activities that the delegates from all the countries of the world will take back for implementation. And women, activists, feminists, young people will also use the lessons they've learned here to go and implement, and the circles gets bigger and bigger. Denai, my dear sister, You know, I'm going to take my chances here. She's from Zimbabwe, I'm from South Africa. I mean, practically same place, same hood.
When you guys are nice to us.
You represent, in your real life, as well as on screen, with Black Panther, courage, power, integrity. As General Okoye, in our work here in the United Nations, we try to bring more women into the security forces. We want more women to be peacekeepers. Right now, we only have 3% of women as peacekeepers. And we do not have enough women in the armies and the security forces of countries to provide the pipeline. We all know that if there were more women in the security forces, in peacekeeping, we will keep the peace. We will prevent the conflict, and there would be no violation of women as it sometimes happens. So for us who work in the Women in Peace and Security, we adored you because you reminded us of who we want to be in the women, peace, and security space. But also, I also know that you are an author. You've written about the women of Liberia and what they did to bring about peace in their countries. How can we in real life learn from the experience of this general that we see on screen? Has it occurred to you that we could use your experience there to help us address these issues in real life?
Well, firstly, wow. And thank you. It is an honor to be here. I've attended a few events in this building, and they're always very enriching and very powerful to be around folks on the ground who are doing the real work at a real level, eye to eye with the issues every day, every minute. So thank you for your courage, for your work. And you know, we see you, and we choose to see you more and more, and that's what coming together like this means to me. To answer that question is to say really that, you know, of course, the issue at the core, and I think what resonates a great deal about Wakanda and the world that it brought to the world, was it brought a world that, go figure, women and men work shoulder to shoulder, and their abilities are equally valued in a society. And that, I think, it brought so much response and attention, because it is astounding that we're not there yet. But we're not. So that actually caused a massive splash, because we so rarely see such a representation. Almost never, people have said, as I've gone across the world and been interviewed by various press, they have always been astounded by that image. And a lot of young people I've seen, boys and girls, I've heard about boys saying to girls, saying as they sit in the theater, someone wrote, they said, a boy said, I didn't know women could be generals. I didn't know a lady could be a general. And the idea of that representation being something that we see, you know, sometimes it's like, okay, Hollywood, but storytelling to me has always been something very resonant. It brings about an image that we don't get to see often. And there's something about putting a story on a mega screen that I think can resonate in a way that can actually be constructive. Because the precedent that's set is like, why don't we do that? Why aren't there more women in positions like that in the world? And you can see, I mean, I was very thankful to be handed such a character, because she had nobility, and she put her country's needs and sovereignty first, and the needs of her people, in a sense of keeping them safe and protected, and keeping them outside of realms of, you know, as a Zimbabwean, you know, I grew up on the continent, and, you know, we see the components of some Zimbabweans in the house. We are everywhere. Hey, guys. You see some components of how, you know, we're in nations, they're very young nations, and the idea of kept stepping out of the brutality and the assault and the legacy of colonization, and stepping into our own identity, self-determined and very clearly paved by ourselves, has been plagued often by very, very troublesome leadership. And so we've seen a lot of coups d'etats. We've seen a lot of unstable governances, which obviously always result in oppression and assault and attacks on the protections of women and girls. So we've seen that over and over and over again. And the thing that we've seen in a very clear form break the back of that has been when women take the helm. And we saw that in Liberia very clearly. And of course, Liberia, that story is very close to my heart because, as was mentioned, my play Eclipsed, I went there, I sat in the presence of these women whom I'd never heard about till I got there. And that's another massive problem is what stories do we amplify? I never heard of the Liberian peace women till I got there. I was here in the United States researching Liberia for years. I knew everything about Charles Taylor. But what did I know about Sugars Cooper? What did I know about Lema Gbowie? What did I know about the women on the ground working, stepping in front of loaded guns and saying, "Stop it. Take care of our nation. Think about our children and our children's children." So, to be honest with you, that's where I drew strength from as I formed Okoye. I drew strength from those women. I drew strength from the women in my history, even of Zimbabwe, Mbuya Nahanda, who stood up to the assault that was happening to her nation back in the 1890s. But there are women who have stood up, but they don't get amplified. So if there's one thing I would love for Okoye to remind us of, it's that those women already exist. Are we giving them voice? Are we giving them platform? Are we amplifying them? And are we encouraging other women and girls to know that they can step into those positions and they will be supported as they do so? That's what I hope resonates from Okoye.
Thank you very much. You will be glad to know that UN Women works shoulder to shoulder with those women. Many people in this room who are our partners, member states, have been there, and we continue to support the Peace Hearts. But more is needed for those women's dreams to be fulfilled, because those women also have dreams. They need a break. I'm going to come back to you, Reese, and talk about Time's Up a little bit. Everybody here talks about the time is now, the tipping point, the pendulum must swing. There's a sense of urgency and a need to go forward. Here in this room are people who make laws, who set global standards, who support their countries to make all of us have the quality of life. In not all cases, but in some cases, they succeed, and we want more success. How could we make sure that as a result of Time's Up, we actually begin this trend of going forward in a sustained trajectory that will make sure that women are ahead, perpetrators are brought to book, and women are protected from assault and any form of discrimination? How could we take this potent moment, this movement, and make it part of the work that these people here do? And vice versa, how can these people also be part of the work that you do?
Yes, that's an excellent question. To speak a little bit more about what Time's Up is, as we formed the organization and it became hundreds and hundreds of women across the country, it was important for us to not just sort of talk about or admire problems of gender inequity and pay disparity. We decided that first and foremost, we needed to help our sisters who were being harassed in the workplace. So we established the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund with the National Women's Law Center. And in 10 days, we raised $20 million. It was incredible. to help, at this point, we've helped 1,500 women with on-the-job harassment suits against their employers. Some of these are class action suits. It's been incredible, the need, but it just shows you how many more people are going to need this service and these services. We've also partnered with some global organizations, and at the BAFTAs this year, which is the British Academy Awards, money was raised for the UK Justice and Equality Fund under the Time's Up label. So I think we're talking about globally, how can we affect change by creating safer work environments and having the companies we work for and the governments that represent us understand that we are not going away and we're not going to be quiet. We want to see ourselves represented 50-50. As soon as possible, as soon as we can make that possible, because women are 50% of the population. We deserve 50% of the representation, 50% of the salaries. We will no longer continue to do work without being paid properly for it. And that's a big part of what this organization is doing. And I'm very proud to work with companies like Elizabeth Arden, who is giving $1 million to the UN Women's Fund today. Because they care about their customers. And I think that many corporations can take a page out of their book to see what do their customers care about. They care about women's rights globally, and they want to lift up their sisters. Because until we take care of what Monica was saying, the last girl in the corner who doesn't have a voice or an opportunity, we're not really doing the work that we need to be doing. So we must remember that little girl, and we're going to make this world a better place for her.
Thank you. Thank you, Reese. So, Danai, you are a writer, an activist, a thought leader, a superhero. What are you not, actually?
Can't cook.
Sitting between the two of you and all the wonderful things that you do really fills us with courage, I mean the older people, to see that in your generation you've come this far and are moving forward. My question to you is your thoughts about how we could support women who live with violence in remote and isolated area through the work that people like you do. Is there a connection that you see that could be of support to those women and girls?
That's a question I constantly ask and I'm constantly navigating. I think it's an evolving thing that people must convict themselves about consistently. There's never one place where you settle and you say, well, I've done that. It's a constant motion. And, you know, when I was in, the times I've done research around women and girls issues, because everything I write is about trying to give voice to those who have been denied a platform to be heard and be seen in their full humanity. I'm amazed by how, though people talk about invisibility and things like that, when I've sat in the presence, for instance, in Liberia, when I sat in the presence of women and girls who had gone through things that I couldn't even begin to imagine, and they sat down with me and wanted to share their stories, they would tell me, firstly, there was never one who wasn't willing to be heard. They all wanted to be heard. And secondly, they all, almost entirely all of them, in fact, said to me, no one had ever asked. No one had ever asked them what had happened to them. No one had ever asked what they'd gone through or what they wanted next. And that really got me. And at the time, I was an extremely broke playwright who was there because I'd done a rent party. And a friend said he'd match whatever I made. And that helped me pay my New York rent and get on that plane. But now I'm in a different position. So I have to go back, and I have to meet those girls again face to face. So I convict myself on that, and to answer your question, as much as I can answer it right now, it's about that circle closing very much, because those girls have the potential and the power and the desire and the resilience. What the women and girls have made it through thus far in the world shows us very clearly women are the more powerful sex, okay? Because I cannot believe the things I've heard women say they've been through, and they still keep going day by day and handle their business and take care of their children and invest in their communities and stand up and make things better for people around them. So what we need to do more and more, to myself and others, I say, how do we close that circle? How do we make sure we are empowering each other? How do we make sure we go and look at that girl in the eye? She could be, you know, the next woman who makes a difference. She could be the next Oprah. She could be the next Michelle. She could be, who could she be? But if we don't get up and do something practical, very practical in our various positions of power, and we all possess them in various ways, she might not reach her greatness and her potential. So that's something I'm speaking to myself. Please trust. It's about how we make sure those girls and women are not there, that their potential is not left on the floor. And it's about how each one of us can do that very specifically. I know it feels overwhelming. It does, but there are ways that we can take a bite out of it, each one of us, and figure out, how do I empower that one girl, or those 3 girls, or those 5 girls? How do I connect with the leaders who are already on the ground, which is another major thing. It's like how there are so many courageous, stunningly courageous women on the ground right now doing amazing work. I've met an amazing woman from the Congo doing stunning work around what's happening to women constantly in that country, in that nation. Constantly they are going through unspeakable things, and she speaks out, and her life is threatened constantly. But she does things that allow, every day she opens her door and there are 15 women there who need her, and who she stands up for and makes sure life gets better, who she fights for in the justice system of the Congo so that these men are held accountable. Who can we connect to? I try to remain very connected to her. I keep a picture of her on my mirror in my bedroom in Los Angeles, so that every day I wake up, I see her face. Who can we connect to in a way that is that person-to-person thing that allows each one of us, and I have to say this more to my own colleagues on the ground in Los Angeles and in New York and wherever we are, where we have power as people of Hollywood, where we're given these huge platforms and we're compensated well. How do we use that to make sure that those girls and those women and those leaders, like that's where the answer is. It's in the bosom of those women in the Congo, in Syria, in Liberia. It's in their bosom. That's where all of our answers are, quite honestly. That's where we need to go. So I convict myself, and I encourage you all to do the same, as I know you are. Thank you.
Thank you. That's sisterhood. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. 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 Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, I want to thank you for this session and thank our 2 guests for inspiring us. Reese connecting with farm workers and making a difference. Danai going back to Liberia and being there for those women. The circle is completed. You can count on us to be with you when you make those choices and those decisions. We are committing to work with you every step of the way, because this is what we exist to do. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And Reese, thank you for your courage in telling your story and helping lead this charge in this movement. And Danai, superhero, inside and out. I mean, both of you guys are just incredible women. Let me just chat with both of you really quick. You inspired so many women here today and across the globe. It's so important. There, can you hear me now? Okay. Both of you inspired so many women here and across the globe. Your words were real today, and I see you getting emotional, Reese. This means something. This is a pivotal moment.
Yeah, it just means so much to hear Denai speak so beautifully from her heart and to lift up the women that are doing the work across this world. Just meeting incredible activists in the past 3 months who are working with domestic workers, farm workers, restaurant workers, the people in hotels and all over the country and all over the globe is just incredibly inspiring because they do it every day. They wake up every day.
Every day.
Yeah, just to help another woman out, and it's amazing. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
And we need our collective strength on this issue. Denai, you can see your courage. We can feel your truth. What do you want to see happen next in terms of this movement? What needs to happen besides just the talk? What do we need to see?
It's all about action. It really is, and it's about really, you know, there's I try to do this thing every month with this thing called Love Our Girls. It's just really about bringing awareness to all these organizations out here. You know, the astounding work that Reese has started, utilizing the power of Hollywood to these causes, the astounding work that's being done by these amazing activists in the room, what's happening across the world right now in northern Nigeria, what's happening here in the United States, all of those things, you know, the astounding work, it needs amplification. People have platforms, everybody. There's social media. You know, I see everyone wants to post something. Everyone wants a picture they want to post, you know. But what are we posting about?
Right.
There's some real heroes out there, sheroes, that we need to post about daily. Let the world know them, popularize them, you know, turn them into the next, you know, craze, the next hashtag, make their faces as well known as everybody else's. You know, we can do that. We actually have the power to do that now with social media. So there's something in that as well. We amplify, and hold ourselves accountable to connect directly.
Wonderful. Okay, Reese, the world is watching. What do you want women to do tomorrow, the day after International Women's Day? What can they do to help lead this fight?
I think just make a pledge that you're not going to stop until things have changed in this world. And we're not going to stop, and we're not going to be quiet, and we're going to stand up for the woman next to us, because everybody can do something. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. Help the woman next to you.
And to the men out there,
we need them.
Yes. We do, and they need this too. This disbalance is not healthy for either side of the gender. You know, it's a disbalance that it leaves us all sick. It leaves us all unhealthy. It leaves us all unwhole. And so I do encourage the men, and there's so many who are already coming forward, and I love that. We're thankful for that. As I was growing up, I always wondered, you know, because I was a loudmouth kid that always wanted to ask these questions, but I always wondered why I didn't see many men stand up towards these issues and speak out about how they could tell a man was being unjust towards other women, or they could tell an issue didn't make sense about how women were being treated as compared to them. And I'm thankful now that I'm seeing that change happen. I'm seeing men start to stand up. But we need so many more of you to stand up, to speak to one another. Men often listen to each other a lot more sometimes than they listen to women. We need those who get it to speak and to change the minds of each other, and to tolerate zero, not in the locker room, not in the bar. Don't tolerate any of it. Stand up every minute, because you could be saving a woman from a really unjust situation.
Stand up. Well, ladies, thank you so much. They deserve a round of applause. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Making a difference, making an impact. Well, as they make their way off, we're going to hear from Drew Tillman perform again.
Just survive. Oh, you will see me thrive. Can write my story. I'm beyond the archetype. I won't just conform. No matter how you shake my core, 'cause my roots, they run deep. Oh, oh, you have so little faith. Don't doubt it, don't doubt it. Victory is in your veins. You know it, and you will not negotiate. Just fight it, just fight it. I will transform. When the fire's in my feet again, in the fortress of stars circling, they're whispering, you're out of time, but still I rise. This is no mistake, no accident. You think the final nail is in, we'll think again. Don't be surprised, I will still rise. I must stay conscious through the madness and chaos. So I call on my angels. They say, oh, you have so little faith. Don't doubt it, don't doubt it. Victory is in your veins. You know it, and you will not negotiate. Just fight it, and be transformed. 'Cause when the fire's in my feet again, the fortress of stars circling, they're whispering, you're out of time, but still I rise. This is no mistake, no accident. When you think the final nail is in, we'll think again. Don't be surprised, I will still rise. Oh, still rise. Don't be surprised, I will still rise.
There we go. Thank you, Drew. You were wonderful. She gets me excited. Okay, well, we heard from Reese, we heard from Denai, and weren't they incredible? Yeah, they really were. And you could just see their passion. It was wonderful. Well, now we're going to have another fireside chat, and we're going to talk to the activists on the ground, really affecting change. And I call all of these women the doers. So please join me in welcoming Karen Yellick, who is the CEO of Indigo Africa. It's a nonprofit organization which empowers artisan women in Africa through employment opportunities and education. We also have Mariah Larasi, who is the executive director of IMCON, working on ending gender-based violence against Black and ethnic minorities. She joined Emma Watson at the Golden Globes in support of the Time's Up movement and has worked with UN Women on intersectionality. And of course, we want Monica Ramirez again, the co-founder and president of Alianza Nacional de Campesinas. And we have Shara Razavi, who's the Chief of Research and Data Section of UN Women. She joined UN Women in 2013 with 20 years of experience in designing and coordinating cross-regional and multi-country policy-oriented research programs in the field of gender and development. Ladies, thank you. Please have a seat. And Karen, let me begin with you. Economic empowerment has been just so important to the empowerment of women in both rural and urban contexts. In Indigo Africa's 2017 Social Impact Report, you emphasize that financial inclusion is a key ingredient for economic development, entrepreneurship, and poverty reduction in developing countries. Could you tell us more about what Indigo Africa is doing to empower women and young girls?
Thank you, Sade. It's really an honor to be here today, and I thank UN Women for including Indigo Africa in this wonderful event. And Danai, I don't know if you're still here, but I just wanted to say we're a small organization, but we're doing that practical work that you called for. So to help empower women economically, Indigo Africa focuses on women and girls in the artisan sector. This sector is actually the second largest industry in the developing world after agriculture. Yet it remains highly fragmented and for the most part is an informal economy. Most of the women who work in the artisan sector live in rural areas and don't have access to the resources that they need or the tools that they need to bring their products to market to earn steady income. And that's where Indigo comes in. For the past 10 years, we've been working to change that. So in 2007, we started in Rwanda with 30 women who were genocide survivors and helped them form a cooperative, get it registered. We taught them an artisan technique that would sell well in the export market and started our first education program. Today, we are now working with 1,100 people, women in Rwanda and Ghana.
That's fantastic.
Helping them with the artisan, becoming artisans who can operate in the global marketplace. And it is a real community of women. Our approach to economic empowerment really has three components. You know, the first is financial inclusion. By providing a supply chain and the ability to export and sell their products in the global market. Second is gender inclusion. By providing access to business education, we help level the playing field. And third is inclusion as part of a global organization. I mean, we really, our culture is one of collaboration. And we collaborate and grow really long-term relationships with the artisans we work with. They're not our employees. They are our partners, and they are running women-owned businesses. So in our social impact report, which you referred to, which we publish annually, we illustrate how effective we feel this model has become. So let me just give you a snapshot. In 2007, when we began working with the first 30 women, they were earning on average 20 cents a day, which was well below.
20 cents?
Yes, in 2007.
How does somebody live on 20 cents a day?
In 2007, the international poverty line was $1 a day. So, all right, by 2017, the average income of the artisans we work with is $2.27 a day.
Significant improvement, but still more needs to be done.
And we're working
but
really.
That's significant.
It's 20% above the international poverty line for that 16 and 17, and by earning fair and consistent pay, the women are able to improve their standard of living, and most importantly to them, to help their children, both with their health and their education. I mean, I draw my strength and inspiration every day from these women who will do anything. They are so determined to do what it takes to provide a better life for their children. And empowering a woman really has a multiplier effect. So
makes the economy better.
Yes, it does. And actually helps their export economy too. So the partners that we are now working with have on average 5 dependents. So the multiplier effect is over 5,000 people's lives are being impacted. And as the community of artisans we work with grows, our commitment to providing job opportunities and education remains steadfast. These women, our artisan partners, have big dreams and big hopes. We invest in them because we have the confidence not only that they will achieve, but that they will exceed those goals.
Thank Thank you, Karen. Karen, and just briefly, I know that you guys also have a leadership academy. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. We actually offer quite a few education programs. So why don't I just give you a little bit of background. Our focus on education is grounded in the belief that education is the key to long-term empowerment and social change. So that's why we do more than just run a supply chain. Most of the women that we began working with in Rwanda in 2007 had had their education interrupted by the genocide. So in the beginning, we offered really practical things like literacy, health, safety in the workplace, an introduction to English. But as a number of artisan women grew, and then many of them went to night school, to get their secondary school education, our programs evolved to meet their needs. So we offer basic business and technology training. We launched the Leadership Academy in 2014 for those women who wanted to take it one step further. And it's actually modeled on business school, developing the business plans and the marketing for the export market. It's advanced. And the vocational training we do for young women, and then we also have a Young Leadership Academy. But what I wanted to spotlight today was our vocational training program, because I believe this really illustrates our approach to helping address the challenge for young women who live in rural areas, who may possess a secondary school education, but don't have a job. And they haven't had a job since they graduated, and they don't have a career path. Well, we had this situation, we built the supply chain, our artisan community continued to grow. Most of the artisans we work with live in rural areas. So we went to our top producing cooperatives and we said, would you be interested in helping us train young women in your community to make the wonderful products that you make for the export market so they can have a career path in the artisan sector? And the answer was a resounding yes. In fact, they told us, we want to increase our capacity and we wanted to bring young women in, but we didn't know how to do it. So we worked over the past 2 years with our partners in both Rwanda and Ghana to recruit and train 225 young women. They would train for the artisan skills training at the cooperative, and Indigo provided them with business training. And I will tell you, their favorite part of the business training program was using laptops and learning more about technology. They knew how to use a phone, but they'd never used a laptop. And
so you guys are doing a lot. You're doing a lot there.
And at the end, the graduation, the semesters were 6 months, but at the end of each graduation, 100% of them were employed. They could either join the cooperative they'd interned with, or if they wanted to start their own cooperative, which 4 groups of young women did, we would help them with that.
Fantastic, fantastic. Wonderful.
And the vocational training was really beneficial to both generations.
It's key. It's key. Well, let me get Marai Larasi in here. Marai, you've worked extensively on ending violence against women through your organization, MCON. And you previously said that we need to create seismic shifts across social norms if we are to end violence against women and girls and create a truly equal world. Do you feel that the global marches and solidarity movements of the past year have started to create this shift? What do you think?
Thank you,
Is it here to stay?
Yep. Sorry?
Is it here to stay?
I hope so. It better be. This is my plan anyway, that it's, they're here to stay. Thank you for the welcome, but also, sisters, it's really great to be here with you. Huge thanks to UN Women for including me in this conversation. I feel incredibly humbled sitting here with this amazing group of women. So, Sade, to the question. In the last 18 months, we have experienced this tidal wave, the lifting of women's voices as more and more of us speak out individually and collectively against harassment, assault, inequality, and injustice. The silence is being broken in unprecedented ways, and that does matter. So I believe that from Life in Leggings in the Caribbean to Me Too to Time's Up, we're creating and experiencing a gear change, which is absolutely lifting the bar and contributing to these shifts. And as we've heard, the voices of high-profile women from Hollywood to London join ours as activists, We have experienced a kind of amplification around these issues that we couldn't have imagined 5 years ago. And I really want to thank Danai in particular for some of the things that she said about amplification. But we must remember that none of this has occurred in a vacuum. These movements are built on decades and centuries of women's labor, feminist labor, often the labor of women that are marginalized across our societies, women of color, working class women, women with disabilities, women who have no celebrity status, women who get up every day to toil in rape crisis centers, black women's services, women's shelters, women who resist by putting their bodies on the front line all over the world. So an example from London, our own Million Women Rise March is in its 11th year this year. Grassroots activists, survivors, dreamers, warrior women, Wakanda type women, taking over the streets of London. Yet without the power of celebrity endorsement, we may never make the news. While this says something about which voices are considered more valuable, it's also why this solidarity across spheres is so important. We're not voiceless, by the way. I really worry when people describe us as voiceless. We just aren't often listened to. Now, walking down the red carpets with Emma Watson and Tessa Thompson meant that a whole group of people who would never have known about the work that we do now know, right? It shouldn't be that way, but it is. So for this to be sustainable, we need to harness this moment. We need to build on this work. We need strong leadership at every level. We need to look within our movements and make sure that we are getting our own houses in order. And that's a bit more of a challenging conversation, right? We need to deal with our own oppressive structures and behaviors. We need political leaders that will join us in creating the seismic shifts, or understand that we will use our votes, or voices, or pens, or art, whatever we need to hold them to account, or we will move them out. And Sade, just to say, and to everybody here, that we're marching not just now, we've been marching for centuries. I am the descendant of people that were enslaved, right? So we have been marching for centuries, and we will not rest till we have a world that is just, equal, safe, and free.
Well said, Mariah. Mariah, let me ask you this, and I pose this to Danai and to Reese. You know, what do we need to do to make sure that this moment is not lost?
So it's that stuff that I just said. There is something about looking at leadership at every possible level. There is something around how we close the circle, the kind of conversations that we have across spheres. You know, like if we build movements that only involve elite women having conversations with each other, then actually nothing's going to shift.
No, it's not.
Absolutely.
It's not. We need to worry about the farm worker. We need to worry about the female immigrant janitor who's working overnight, who's getting sexually assaulted, but is too afraid to come out and speak because she's worried about, is she going to be deported?
Absolutely.
And she's still trying to take care of her family.
Absolutely. And if we can't have conversations about race and caste and class and, you know, disability, etc., if we can't talk about how power works even in our own movements, then we're not putting our house in order. And we need to make sure that we put our house in order. The UN needs to put its house in order. You know, like we need to be able to talk about power and inequality everywhere.
Monica, I see you just nodding your head throughout this whole thing. What are your thoughts right now as you're hearing all of this?
I mean, I couldn't agree more with what's being said. I think the additional piece of this is we have to invest in women. And we have to invest in the women's organizations and groups that are doing the work on their ground, because often what we see happen is we're being asked to respond to great needs with no resources. And in order to keep movements growing and moving and sustainable, you have to have the resources to be able to do the work. Otherwise, what's happening is we're asking individuals who are already marginalized and already exploited and already vulnerable to do more, and often with less. And it can't be that way. So in order to sustain the movements that we're building, they have to be cross-movement, they have to be cross-sector, they have to involve people at the highest levels of power. We need to be at every power table that exists, and we need to—
Do we need to see, you know, more marches? Do we need to start doing that more than we're doing it?
You know, I've been marching pretty much my whole life, I think, you know. And marches are important because they give us an opportunity to come together and to have our issues be aired. But it's marches and it's these spaces in which we can talk about these things in addition to strategic plans to make the long-term change that's required. It's got to be both the activism on the ground and marches and rallies and things, as well as the meaningful plans to move the change that's required. And that requires resources and additional support with people who have the megaphone. Because as Mariah says, it's not that people are voices, it's that we've not been given the megaphone. And so all of those pieces are required if we actually intend to take this moment and see meaningful and lasting change.
You know, we heard Reese say that she helped to raise $20 million in very little time. But also, there are things that we can all do. We're talking about being able to, to fund the movements, to be strategic. Well, you need money for that. So are you encouraging women to donate to certain funds?
Well, we're encouraging individuals, not just women, all people, to donate to organizations like ours who are grassroots organizations. We have to invest in the base. We have to invest on the ground. Because when we have big campaigns that are happening at national or international levels, that doesn't necessarily mean that the resources are going to make it to the ground. So we have to invest there. And, when people ask me about where to invest, I say to them, invest where your heart is. Invest in the thing that you are most passionate about. Because the reality is there are so many organizations and so many important causes that intersect, right? We don't live, as Audre Lorde said, we don't live single lives. And so when we're thinking about investing and contributing, we should be thinking about all the different issues that impact individuals' lives. And so I say to folks who are thinking about contributing and supporting causes, invest from your heart, and that will help us on the ground continue to do the work that we need to do at the national and international level. And we have to be able to work across across nations and across borders, because changing things in one state or locality is not sufficient. We've got to make the change at the highest level possible.
Okay, thank you very much. Shara, let me get you in here. Just last month, UN Women launched its flagship report on SDGs. Tell us a little bit, that one right there. Tell us what really struck you in that report.
I'm sorry.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here and to be sharing the panel with these amazing women who are doing, who are making the changes that are needed in every part of the world. And we definitely need change. I think what really struck me in doing this report, this is the summary, by the way. The report itself is much thicker, and you can get the whole thing downloaded on UN Women's website. What really struck me in this report was the gap, the huge gap between what we as a global community say we would like to see happen, we want to see happen, the changes we would like to see, and the realities on the ground. And the facts and the data that we marshaled in this report speak to those realities. So let me just give you two really brief examples. We talk a lot, and very rightly so, about the importance of work-life balance, of people, of women, of men being able to look after their small children, others who need care, while having some kind of income security, being able to live above poverty, not in conditions of poverty. Now, when in people's lives, when in women's lives do you think they experience the greatest rate of poverty compared to men? We looked at data for all regions for which there was data. The gap, the gender gap in poverty, is at its biggest when women are in their reproductive years. And that is for every single region for which we had data. Why? Because it's exactly in those times that it's up very often to women, especially if they're bringing up their children on their own, to make the harsh trade-offs between, do I stay home and look after my child, or do I need to go out and bring money in order to lift myself and that very same child out of poverty? And those harsh choices are very difficult to make when the conditions, when the services, when the infrastructure is not there. So that's, at the human level. But let me also just bring another example, which I think speaks to what, these global arenas are about. In the Sustainable Development Goals, the Agenda 2030, we talk a lot about the global financial system needing to work to be fit for purpose, to support the achievement of the SDGs. These are goals that all world leaders have signed up to, have committed to. Now, where are the financial flows going, do you think? Is it really moving from north to south? Well, let me give you data, and this speaks volumes. In 2012, $1.3 trillion US was going from north to south in the form of aid, in the form of foreign investment, people investing in the south, money going in. But in that same very year, the money that was flowing out of the south to the north was 3.3 trillion, i.e. 2 trillion in that year was going in the opposite direction, from south to north. Now, if this is happening, if these resources are being extracted out of the countries that need the services most, that where people are at greatest risk of being left behind, how are these countries going to invest in water and sanitation, in rural areas? How are they going to invest in violence against women's services, in shelters, in the kind of helplines that are needed, in proper, decent housing? You know, where is the resources going to come from? So these are real issues and real struggles that we need to really think about. And there is a long way to go before we shift the system to really work and make the kind of dreams and visions that I think we all have a reality for everyone.
Awesome, thank you. Well, who wants to chime in? You know, we're talking about all of these issues. We're talking about the flow of money. We're talking about all of these programs. What else do you think is missing for here and now to really see this movement really go forward in a way unlike we've seen before?
Well, I mean, already the other panelists have pointed to some of the really key ingredients. I mean, let me just also talk a little bit about the kind of inequalities that came out in this report. You know, Mariah was talking about the different kinds of inequalities. Now, two inequalities that really cut across all countries, all regions. One is the rural-urban divide. It's a real divide. The other is also a class divide, you know, and that really divides societies. Women are living in the same city, in the same country, but in parallel realities. They really are living worlds apart. And I think in terms of rural areas, let's take a country like Pakistan. Something like 7% of women who live in urban areas suffer from undernourishment. In rural areas, it's 18%. Talk about having access to safe and clean fuel for heating, for cooking. In urban areas, around 40%, 14% of women don't have access, 14% have access to not to clean fuels. Only 14% are using fuels that are harmful, that create all kinds of health consequences for women. In rural areas, 88% of women use unclean fuels, which are damaging to their health. 88%. So the gaps are really huge, and I think what is really needed, the facts are there, are the movements that are needed, and I think we need more movements like the movement that Monica is talking about, to speak out for rural women, women farmers, women who work on their own small farms. But also, I think we need a sea change in making sure that those who speak out are safe in speaking out. We need the civic space so that those who speak out don't risk losing their lives. And also, people can speak out very loud and not be heard. Decision makers need to hear and need to be accountable. And that means a real shift in governance systems and in making democracies real and not just a formal structure.
Thank you, ladies. I'm just going to depart for one moment because I want to bring a male into into these chorus of voices here. And this is actually a video interview with Arunachalam Maruganatham. Pardon me if I pronounce that incorrectly, but let's take a look.
So it all started from my wife. So I saw one day my wife practicing an unhygiene practice. Then I asked her why you are adopting this unhygiene method. There is some products in market. She replied, all women at our family start using that. Then we have to cut our family milk budgets. Then I understood it's a matter of affordability. Then I thought, why not try to make an affordable pad for my wife?
पैडमैन है।
So everything is started from my wife. Now it is gone global. Now with this mission, women can learn making sanitary pads. They can make, they can sell at their dining hall. It is not a matter of affordability, it is a matter of taboo. We have to break the taboo first. The moment you show sanitary pad, people shut their eyes. I said, openly show the sanitary pad that will empower hundreds of women. So it is not a sin, it is a bless actually. Now what is important, the girls in the respective families started going to school. Because of non-availability of the sanitary pad, the girls not attending school for 6 days a month, they are skipping examination. They're not even finishing school, how they will support Indian economy? That's what I told, sanitary pad is having a very good connection with Indian GDP. Provide sanitary pad to each and every girl's school, you can see the change in Indian GDP in double figure. A simple pad will do the gender equality by this way.
See, we need men too. We got to have them by our side. Ladies, any final remarks? Any final comments?
Shall I say something about intersectionality?
Sure, please do.
Okay, because I feel like I won't do us justice if I don't. So, our work at IMCAN is rooted in black feminist practice and black feminist praxis, which means that we're constantly thinking about the fact that if we're to end violence against women and girls, we need to think about how differently positioned women across our societies are treated differently. We're subjugated in different ways. And if we don't pay attention to that, then it means that we won't think about, we actually won't achieve this thing of ending violence against women and girls. So if I think about, the plight, for example, of young black trans women in this country who are actually at incredibly high risk of violence, if I think about the risk facing migrant women, if I think about the fact that actually women with disabilities are at higher risk and are subjugated to violence much more than or non-disabled sisters, if I think about violence perpetrated against lesbians, there is something about how do we make sure that we call times up on violence against all women. We have to think about where does money go, which services, how do we, for example, as women of color, how do we make sure that people stop treating us only as beneficiaries, right? Speaking for us, studying us, researching us, etc., etc. We're not voiceless. We have the capacity to speak for ourselves, and we really welcome allies, right? But we are like the women of Wakanda, and we're saying nothing about us without us. So for us to end violence against women and girls, I saw Monica do a really amazing interview a few months ago, and one of the things that she said is, farm worker women are not powerless. We're not powerless as women of color, as disabled women, as lesbians, etc. What we want is to make sure that the imbalance is redressed. Yeah. That's it. If we start doing that, then this work will be sustainable.
Right. Absolutely. And Karen, any final comments, thoughts?
A phrase that helps me a lot is something Barack Obama said in 2013 at a speech he made at the Brandenburg Gate, which is, it's within our core values to care about the lives of people we may never meet.
Very nice. Shara?
Without being too nerdy, I think the research, the evidence is there. There's a lot of good practices, a lot of good policies, a lot of experience. And I think what is really the key ingredient that we need to add there for this critical moment that we're in is to move ahead scientifically and based on facts. And the facts speak volumes for themselves. And I think with those facts, we need to make the movements speak, and they are speaking very loudly, and the moment is a very critical moment. And I think we are really at the cusp of some big changes happening. And after all, women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights.
That's right. Thank you. And Monica?
I'd like to challenge all of us to ascribe to radical inclusive leadership, where we lift each other up, where we make space for one another, where we bring one another along, where we continue to validate and acknowledge the contributions of all women and all people. Because if we don't begin to embrace radical inclusive leadership, then we will continue to see a situation in which people are being left behind. And right now is the moment when we are all being challenged and we are all being inspired to change the ways of the past. So radical inclusive leadership, I think, should be part of our work going forward.
Ladies, thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there are a few gentlemen out there. We are now almost at the closing of this wonderful celebration, International Women's Day 2018. And I just want to say, you know, this stuff doesn't happen without a lot of dedicated people. And I just wanted to say some quick thank yous before we wrap up today's event. Thank you to UN Women for IWD Celebration, UN Women Executive Director, Ms. Phumzile Malabo Nguka. Thank you so much. And a thank you to Ms. Aparna Mehrotra, Director, and her Coordination Division, to whom we owe this event. Thank you so much. Thank you. And a round of applause to Cynthia Boysen, Nicole Van Hastings, Shivangi Shrivastava, Vandinika Shukla, Anju Pandey, Astaya Prakaya, and all the lovely volunteers for organizing this event. And a special thank you also goes out to our security colleague, Bridget Hancock, who provided significant support to ensure that today has gone as smoothly as possible. And thanks to all the participants, and most of all, to you, the audience. So the time is now, ladies. The time is now, men. Let's go forth strong, making seismic shifts. Thank you. And right now, the One UN Women Anthem, One Woman, was created to mark the occasion of UN Women's founding. It was performed at the inaugural in 2011 and on this very stage. So it's fitting today that we close our program with a special performance of that song. Ladies and gentlemen, One Woman.
In Kangali, she wakes up, she makes a choice. In Hanoi, Nepal, Ramallah, in Tangier, she takes a breath, lifts up her voice. In Lahore, La Paz, Kampala, though she's half a world away, something in me wants to say, we are one woman. You cry and I hear you. We are one woman. You hurt and I hurt too. We are one woman. Your hopes are mine, and we shall shine.
In waters, she speaks the truth. She reaches out and teaches others how to.
In Jaipur, she gives her name. She lives without shame. In Manila, Salta, and Boo, though we're different as can be, we're united, she with me. We are one woman. Your courage keeps me strong. We are one woman. You sing, I sing along. We are one woman. Your dreams are mine, and we share.
and join us.
We are one woman, your victory lifts us all. We are one woman, you rise and I stand tall. We are one woman, your dreams are mine, and we shall shine. Sing along with us, come on. Shine, shine, shine. We shall shine. Shine, shine, shine. We shall shine. Shine, shine, shine. We shall shine. Shine, shine, shine.
behalf of UN Women, may I thank you deeply. And I want to introduce also the producer. Can you please wave? She has helped us. Without her, we wouldn't hear anything. There is a person who has helped us with all the technical, named Chris Walters. I don't know if he's in the room. Thank you very much. And most of all, I would like Sade to come up to the stage. Come on up. This is the second year that Sade has helped us out with IWD. I don't think we could ever find a better anchor and a more convinced ally. I don't think she does this as a job. She does this because she's a woman and because she believes and because she will change the world through her voice. So I thank you, Sade. I don't have anything else I can say that is meaningful because we've all seen what she's done and we all love her, and I wish you the best and thank you so very much. Happy Women's Day. And thank you all for the time that you've given us. And may you have a blessed day. Enjoy the day. Stand up for your victories. Think about what you did well and wonderfully. And we're all wonderful. Thank you.
Du même endroit. I can hear you, Jerry, but I get nothing on the night.
In Kigali, she wakes up, she makes a choice. In Hanoi, Natal, Ramallah, in Tangier, she takes a breath, lifts up her voice. In Lahore, La Paz, Kampala, We